Today I'm going to review this 3.81R trade step by step in my backtesting exercises where I use market structure and supply and demand logic. I'm going to walk through the entry, various profit taking points, and the exact risk management strategy that I practice every day. Now, this is a demo account and just practice, but the principles remain in real life trading. So stay till the end to see all the tips and tricks. With that said, let's get into the chart. All right, so we can see here on the chart, this is the 15-minute for December of 2024. What we're going to do is we're going to rewind back to just before the 9:30 open, and we're going to clear the chart here so that you can see exactly what we're talking about as we get into the day. Now we can see that we've made a 15-minute break of structure to the top side here, so we're going to mark this as our working high. We need to see a 3-candle pullback to validate it, or a 50% mitigation. And we see that at this point. We also enter a key demand zone. This is a key demand zone because we see the aggressive move up, which took out this previous high. So it's obviously a very strong point of interest. And so it also resulted in a displacement or a fair value gap as it moved up. So this covers all the requirements to label this as a demand zone. So at this point, we're just waiting for price to re-enter. It does so at 9:45. At this point, we drop down to the 1 minute to find an entry. And it's basically the same principle. We're looking for a supply zone to be mitigated and overpowered by, in this case, buyers. So right off the bat, I see this order block here represent potential sellers in the market who could work to keep price down, right? And so now if we play price out, we just have to observe what is price doing. It continues. It actually creates a smaller demand cycle here. And right now, this is a good point because since we're waiting for this case here, we haven't even broken over this one, but what we've done is we've created another supply zone, albeit a much bigger one, but it's lower. And this is our supply zone now because it broke structure to this downside, albeit barely. But it still counts by our rule. The candle close here counts. And so what we're doing is we're waiting for price to close above price out. And finally, at this point, it does. Okay. So at this point, this is our entry signal to go long. We can take out our long position. At this point, you can kind of track where you want. You can do the top of the body here, whatever feels right. And this is a little bit subjective, but for me, given the aggression of the movement here, I want to make sure I get into the trade because price could easily, run without me. And so at this point, we're going to place our stops under the low. We're going to identify points where we could take profit. So that for me, as I drop down to the 5-minute, just to make sure I get some valid highs, would be, definitely this zone here with this high. We have a high here also, and then ultimately it takes us to our TP over here, just under that 3.64. Maybe I had my stop a little bit lower, my entry a little bit lower because of that. Let's just see if we can make it a clean 4R trade in this case. Okay, so that's it. That's our entry model at this point, but we don't want to just hang back. What I like to do at this point is observe what price does as we try to come back into the zone. So at this point, price is aggressively moving up. We see some sellers come in. We see buyers take over that initial pass, which makes sense because we've hit a supply zone here. So we do expect to see some type of reaction, but buyers are overpowering, engulfing that candle. And again, sellers try, but again, buyers engulf. At this point, I'm pretty comfortable with putting the trade on for 1% of my risk. And this will be an open trade now. My idea is that I do want price to eventually kind of come back, tag me in, and then go the rest of the way, picking up orders that it would have left during this aggressive move. That's the idea. So we play price out. I'm just going to advance the 1 minute here. We do move down, but we continue up higher. We hit our initial take profit mark, which tells us that there's definitely buyer momentum. The question is, are we going to get tagged in? I'm not interested in moving my entries at this point because these are still unmitigated fair value gaps. believe they also appear on the 5-minute right there at the bottom half of the 5-minute one right there. So what we want to do is, if we do get tagged in, we'll just move our take profit to this line. That's all. And so we continue to play price. Now I do like the way it's coming down. That's another observation we can make on price action. And it's not meant to be a suggestion to just stare at the charts all day, but you might want to check in every couple of minutes just to observe price action. We see prices are coming down. These lows are failing to take the highs, which make them weak lows, and price is continuing to take them out. We get the nice lower high, lower low pattern. At this point, we do have an internal low, internal high that's taken. If this high were to be taken by this movement, then that could be a signal to find another entry, depending on your risk tolerance. However, in this case, we don't close above it. We continue pressing down. Sellers are present, and we get some aggressive movement down, which doesn't scare me too much, since we always knew that this was going to be a weak low the second it did not take this high, right? So we expect this low to be taken, which it is. Price kind of continues chopping in and out, and eventually we do get our tag. Okay, so we've been tagged in at this point in our original zone. We do like this movement of price up and down, ultimately moving down. There's no conviction from the sellers to move through my stop loss, so I'm comfortable leaving the trade on. So now we're in the trade, right? And so we observe price. I'm just going to help play this out. And at this point, the logic is that they have picked up the buyers that were patiently waiting here. We see that hypothesis is coming true, since we've already closed above this high, which makes this a strong low, which makes this a strong low, since it took this high. And now we just kind of wait for price to hopefully hit our PT1. You can move your stops at this point if you'd like. I like to keep it a little open. And then we hit our first take profit, right? We've hit that profit. We take 50% off. I'm just going to do that now for my backtesting data. And we continue watching price to see what it does. We are entering another supply zone here, so we expect some reaction. The question is, is it significant? We can observe the price the candlesticks to see what the momentum and aggression is. We see sellers step in, but they start petering out. You see the bars get smaller and smaller. Eventually, buyers will step back in, engulfing candles and leaving fair value gaps, a clear sign of aggression. Sellers put up another fight. And you can say at this point that we're still working towards our second PT, which we hit, right? We hit our second PT nicely. And at this point, I want to take another percentage of the trade-off, and we can look at our stops. Since this has now proven itself to be a strong low, we can move our stops underneath. There is a fair value gap right there, so I'm just going to keep my stop just under that in case price decides to come in to mitigate that fair value gap and then go. I don't want to get tagged out of that, but I'll still keep some profit on the table. So we continue forward. At this point, we've taken 2 targets already. We're heading into the afternoon New York session. I'm just going to go to the 5-minute to speed this up. We see price does come pretty close to our stop loss. I think my original stop loss was actually down here because there's this 5-minute fair value gap. So I want to adjust that, which makes sense, right? Price just came through, completely mitigated that other fair value gap that we saw in the 1-minute. Picked up the buyers it needed, and now is on its way up. So at this point, we're just going to let this play out. We get some back and forth here between buyers, which again makes sense, right? We're entering the last supply zone here on this high that we expect to be taken because we are bullish overall on the 15-minute. So we're trading with market structure, and we're targeting that high. So we expect some type of seller presence, which we see in these candles here. If I zoom in, you see candles that are coming down, but nothing that overtakes any significant lows. Like sellers come in, but they don't take any low here. suggesting that there's more momentum coming from this location to bring it down. It's still pretty sideways action, so that tells me buyers are still defending. And they eventually overpower by taking over this high, which could be another take profit, frankly, but at this point, we just wait it out and we do get our take profit here for this, in this case, 4-hour trade. As I adjust my entries for replay purposes, that's what we see. So that's a perfect example of how we use market structure, price action, and supply demand zones to not only find an area of interest, but then also entry confirmation. If you enjoyed this video, then I have a few more backtesting videos just like this on my channel. Check them out here, and I'll see you there.